we like the Christian Light. And yes, it is still open and go. There's just a tad more prep, and you do have a separate teachers.
Okay, let's take a look at Christian Light Education Language Arts 3. This is the first unit. So on your first page, you're going to see it lists the things that are in each lesson: penmanship, spelling, creative writing, supplies needed. It breaks down each lesson and what extra things you may need for each lesson. So it is, in my opinion, open and go. There's just a little bit of prep. It's going to lay out the objectives for each lesson, your board preparation, which I do on a big whiteboard, but you could do on like a lap size whiteboard or a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be on the board. Every day they're going to introduce a new study word for that lesson. For example, lesson 1 is a verb, tells about verbs, and then the usage of a, and, the, and the, talks about good study habits. If you have the teacher manual, you do not need the separate answer guides because all your answers are going to be in here. Now, if you choose not to get the teacher guide, I would 100% recommend getting the answer booklets. So we're still on lesson 1, and this is just breaking everything down. All the things you're going to need to say, but you really could just take the light unit and read from it. But you're going to find the same information in your teacher guide as the light unit. Now, with Christian Light Education, they do offer penmanship, so your handwriting, and it will have the letters that you're going to learn for the day laid out, but you actually turn to the back of the book and you'll see each lesson with each letter you're going to practice for that lesson. Now, we have only done handwriting in here for lesson 3 because we've been using the Good and the Beautiful handwriting. But what I have heard from another YouTube mom, which is Heavenly Homeschool, that once you get to book 305 in the light units, they will ask your child to use cursive from that point forward. But of course, you do not have to do it that way if you do not want to. And my son is not fluent in cursive writing yet, as this is our first year doing it. So we will just continue to do handwriting as practice and write in regular print. So this is a look at lesson 1 in Christian Light Education. It's talking about verbs, and once again using a, and, the, and the, and good study habits. Going on to page 2 of lesson 1. And then you get to your penmanship for the day, introduction of your spelling words, and from what I can tell, in this first light unit, there are 3 lists for spelling. I'm not sure exactly how long each list lasts, like how many lessons you'll go over it and use the same spelling words, because, you know, we've just started this week. And then you're on to lesson 2. It's just very simplified, very to the point. It's not skipping all over the place. And then every day you do a little bit of review from the thing you did before. So if we were on, you know, lesson 2. So in lesson 2, we're learning sentences and fragments. I cross out penmanship because we did not do that. Once again, you're back at spelling. But each day you'll come back around to the thing that you talked about. So it is a soft spiral, in my opinion. At some point you'll get to a section that says we remember. And the we remember section is your review section for the day. So right here. We remember. Underline verb twice in each sentence because we learned about verbs on lesson 1. So it is a soft spiral back to what we learned. Some days are more pages than others, but it's just very cleanly laid out, not too much on the page, not too many different concepts. In my opinion, that makes it easier to use because you don't have tons of pieces and parts. Now, with Christian Light Education, your reading is not added into this. You have to have your own separate reading program, which you can get from Christian Light Education. So just to touch on showing you the board preparation, today we did lesson 3. Our board preparation was to put the dates, so he would tell me where the comma went, and also write the sentences without capitalizing anything. I did that on the board and stood up here, and he told me where to place the commas and told me which letters should be capitalized, and I underlined each.
So my son is in the 4th grade, but because he placed on level 3, I went with Christian Light Education Language Arts 3. Now, I know most of you are probably already familiar with Christian Light Education, but if you aren't, it comes in booklets. So small booklets, which are called LightUnits. This one goes from 301 to 310. I also bought the teacher's manual, which I think is very helpful because it gives you board work and prep and an overview of the lesson, as well as all the answers for what's in here. They do have optional answer key books, but I don't see why you would need them unless you're not going to use the teacher's manual. But this is a very helpful tool as it lays out the things you need to say. Yes, you could just look at their light unit, but it goes a little more in depth than the teacher's manual, in my opinion. Also, I got the Language Arts extra practice sheets. I didn't show you this because I actually have not gone through this yet because I just remembered that I have it. But after we finish this week, I am going to implement this because it looks like for each section of your light unit, you do have extra practice. So if you feel like your booklet isn't enough, you have these for each lesson to add a little bit more work. I can see how these would come in handy, especially when you get to more in-depth topics that probably need a little more practice. As I said, this is a soft spiral, so it does bring back around what you've already learned to go back over. I like this more than the good and the beautiful because it's not so much skipping around, in my opinion. It's more of a flow of we're going to do this, gently move on to the next thing and kind of bring it back, and gently move on to the next thing and bring it back. And it ties it together more. And the fact that I'm not being told what I have to read. Now, I'm not using their reading program. Currently for reading, I'm letting my child pick the books he wants to read, and I'm coming up with comprehension worksheets for him to ask the questions about plot and character and themes of the story. All the things that a traditional reading curriculum would give you, but we have quite a few text heavy subjects right now, so I don't want that to be another thing he has to write. He is more of an apprehensive reader, not that he's not good at reading, he just doesn't enjoy it. And me, as a book lover, I really am trying to help him find that love of reading. So I don't want to shove that down his throat that he has to read this and has to do these worksheets, and because I think that'll just make him push away from it more. I hope I've given you kind of a good overview of what these look like, as we've only been doing it for this week. So I don't have a large bank of knowledge of this to give you more than what I have, and I don't want to speak on things that I'm not sure about yet. So those of you who've been looking into Christian Light Education, this is a brief overview of what the language arts looks like. And for us so far, coming from the good and the beautiful, he is loving this, and I am too, which I never thought I would say, honestly, because I am a person who has enjoyed the good and the beautiful. But I hope this helps somebody. If you have questions, I will do my best to answer them. And as I find out more knowledge through using this, I will share it with you. Thanks for watching. Bye.